Okay, so next step is to get your data out of your survey once you've done all your questions and stuff. And that is in here, you've got responses. You can create a spreadsheet, and what it will do is create a spreadsheet that the data will go into, and this should update as people answer. There's a learn more page there, I'm not going to go to it now. Click create, and it creates a link between the form and the spreadsheet, and it looks like this. The timestamp, the question, there's no questions in my questionnaire because it's just a dummy one, but each person's responses will be in a row and each question will be in a column. I'm going to show you one from a couple of years ago to show you how to use pivot tables to get out the data you want. This is not your questions, obviously. This is from a couple of years ago, but the way you do it is the important thing you need to know how to do. So this is a spreadsheet from ages ago, 3 years ago. You can see that there's all the questions up across the top, and each row is a different person's response. What we're going to do is create a pivot table that selects one of the questions and then filters that by generation. So what you need to do is select all of the data here with click the top left button here so it all goes blue, and then in data there's this item called pivot table, and make it in a new sheet. So then you've got this dialog here. So what you want to do is find the different generations response first. So you should all have a question in your questionnaire that asks them what generations they are. So in the rows here, we want to add the question that is, what generation are you from? And then you have each generation there. So then you're going to put the data from another question against this, and it will separate it out by generation. So it's a bit fiddly, but this is how you do it. In columns, you want to add some columns. So let's choose the question. There's one about mobile phones. Okay, this is about etiquette. Is it acceptable to answer a mobile phone when engaged in a business matter? So that's going to be the question. So that's the columns. You've set that question. Now under values, you're going to actually choose the same question again. There it is, answering a mobile phone while engaged in a business matter. So the column is going to be, that's the heading, and then the data is what they put. Now, you're going to summarize the data by, so this is in the value section, it's summarized by, at the moment it's set to sum. You need to change it to count A. And don't ask me why it's called that, but what it does is gives you the numbers of responses from each person for each option. And this was one of those rating scale questions from 1 to 5. If we have a look at so the question here was totally unacceptable to perfectly acceptable was the rating scale, and we'll change that in a minute. So we have now chosen the data. We have the data we need, but this data is not editable. You can't really edit stuff out that you don't need to make a graph out of it, which is the point of this, is to make graphs of your quantitative data. So what we need to do is actually copy some of this data into a new table. I know that's a bit fiddly, but it makes it actually usable. So that's kind of important. So we're going to copy the generations. We're going to copy the title there. We're going to put some borders around this so we can see where the things end. Now, what we want is this data to go into this table. So first of all, let's add we need some more columns with reporters, so is it. Now the rating scale we need to translate into what our questionnaire actually said. So this one said 1 meant totally unacceptable, spell perfectly acceptable. So they're the possible answers. If you double click between the column letters here, it'll just auto size to fit the heading, which is handy, except if the heading above it is too long, that's not handy. So the quick way to do this, and a good way to do this, is you want that data to equal that data. You can put formulas in, and then you don't have to copy and paste everything, right? And the good thing about this is, so I want this cell to be the same data as this cell here. So I want it to be the baby boomers who answered 1, totally unacceptable. So what you do is you click in that cell, and up the top here, you put a formula and you go equals, and then you click the cell you want that value to equal. And you hit enter on your keyboard, and then it equals 23, same as that. Now the good thing about this is it's smart enough to figure out that if you want the same formula in different cells, you don't have to keep typing it. So there's a little box down here that you can drag down, and then you can drag it across, and it maps all those cells. So now we have our data. Now the good thing, the reason why I did the data like this, it's linked. It's actually this data table is linked to your response sheet, so that when new data goes in, these numbers will update, and your graph should update with what. So you can actually start making these graphs before you've got all your data. You don't have to wait for everyone to respond, because the data should update. And you can see here it's linked. So the form is linked to the data, so it should just keep updating the numbers, and your graph should update as it goes. So that should save you some time. So you can graph this now. So what you do is you select this, and you'll notice that there are different numbers of people from different generations. So comparing the numbers directly is no good. We need to compare them as percentages, so we can see what percentage of different generations think what. So we select all the data, we insert a chart. Now there's lots of different charts, but the one that's most useful for this type of chart data is called a stacked column graph, but not that one. That is numbers. We want this one, where it converts them all to a percentage. So it should say 100% stacked column chart. And there you have a graph that has generations, and here you can see, for example, that 56% of baby boomers think that answering a mobile phone while engaged in a business matter is totally unacceptable, whereas only 26.3% of Gen Z thinks that's totally unacceptable. So you can see a bit of a pattern there between generations as far as their social norms, which is good, because that's the sort of data we're looking for. So this heading's not very useful, so you might want to change that. You can manually just change the chart title there, or you could copy and paste text and then double click to edit, and it changes the title there. Then you can copy this chart or publish the chart, or download it as an image and put it into your assignment and write about it. Obviously, with your qualitative data, you're not going to be able to make graphs out of it. You have to actually summarize the written responses that people have written. So there's in your form, you might have some written responses somewhere, and you have to actually read them and sort of write a summary of the main ideas that people have